Man surrounded by hungry tigers in forest. What happens next changed his life forever. The scent of blood trailed behind him as David Chen stumbled through the dense undergrowth of northern Thailand's Mae Wong National Park. His torn backpack hung from one shoulder, the compass cracked and useless, 3 days into what should have been a routine wildlife photography expedition. And now he found himself prey. The low growl from behind made his heart seize. Not one tiger, but 3, a mother and 2 nearly full-grown cubs, their amber eyes tracking his every movement through the gathering twilight. David's trembling hand clutched his camera, the only witness to what would surely be his final moments. "You're going to die here, just like Mason did." The voice in his head wouldn't stop. His colleague Mason had vanished in these same forests 2 years ago. The Thai authorities had found only scraps of clothing and a broken tripod. Now David understood why. He pressed his back against the massive trunk of a banyan tree, its sprawling roots offering no escape route. The mother tiger, a magnificent Indo-Chinese specimen with battle scars across her face, prowled closer, each step deliberate, patient. Her cubs flanked her, learning how to corner prey. David's mind raced through his wildlife training. Playing dead wouldn't work. Running would trigger their chase instinct. Fighting was suicide. His hand touched the small canister of pepper spray in his pocket, his only defense against a combined 900 pounds of apex predator. Useless. The mother tiger's muscles tensed, her shoulders rolling forward in the unmistakable precursor to an attack. David closed his eyes, the faces of his parents in Boston flashing before him. They had begged him not to take this assignment. The magazine deadline hadn't seemed worth dying for until now. A sharp crack echoed through the forest, not the sound of tiger jaws on bone, but bamboo breaking underfoot. Someone else was in the forest. The tiger's head swiveled in unison, momentarily distracted. David saw his one chance. He fumbled for his pack, extracting the emergency flare with shaking hands. One shot. The mother tiger turned back toward him, her focus deadly once more. David struck the flare against the tree. It flared to life with a violent hiss, casting everything in a hellish red glow. He thrust it toward the tigers, waving it in wide arcs as he'd once read could deter predators. The cubs retreated instantly, but the mother held her ground, her growl vibrating through David's chest. For 3 eternal seconds, man and tiger locked eyes, prey defying its hunter. With a dismissive flick of her tail, she turned and melted into the underbrush, her cubs following. David's legs gave way. He slid down the trunk, the flare still sputtering in his grip, illuminating the most beautiful sight he'd ever seen, an empty forest path. But the crack of bamboo grew louder. Someone, or something, was still coming. The approaching footsteps stopped abruptly. David held his breath, the dying flare casting long shadows across the forest floor. A voice called out in Thai, then broken English. "Hello? Someone there?" From the darkness emerged a wiry older man, perhaps in his 60s, wearing a park ranger uniform that had seen better days. His weathered face registered surprise, then concern at David's bloodied appearance. "American, you bleeding, tigers nearby, very dangerous." David struggled to his feet, adrenaline still coursing through his system. "They were just here, 3 of them. How did you find me?" The ranger, who introduced himself as Somchai, pointed to the flare. "See red light from river. Come check. Very lucky. Night coming soon." As Somchai examined David's injuries, mostly superficial cuts from his panicked flight through the undergrowth, he explained that tiger attacks had increased in the past 5 years. Poaching had reduced their natural prey, driving the predators to take greater risks. That one with scar. "We call her May Fiu, Queen of Forest. She lose mate to poachers. Very dangerous now." Somchai offered David water from a battered canteen. The lukewarm liquid was the most delicious thing David had ever tasted. As darkness enveloped the forest completely, Somchai indicated they needed to move. My station 3 kilometers. Can reach before midnight. Stay close. Tigers still hunting. The journey through the pitch-black forest was an exercise in pure terror. Every rustling leaf, every distant animal call sent David's heart racing. Somchai moved with the confidence of a man who had walked these paths his entire life, occasionally pausing to listen intently before proceeding. "You photographer, for magazine." David nodded, then realized Somchai couldn't see him in the darkness. "National Geographic." "I'm documenting the decline of Indochinese tigers. The irony isn't lost on me." Somchai's soft laugh carried through the darkness. "Not first photographer I save, not last, I think." An hour into their trek, Somchai froze, raising his hand for silence. David heard it too, the unmistakable sound of something large moving parallel to their path. Somchai slowly reached for his rifle, a vintage weapon that didn't inspire confidence. "May few following us." She curious now. Bad sign. David's throat constricted with renewed fear. "What do we do?" Somchai's voice remained steady, though David detected a new tension in it. "We walk normal. No run. I have plan if she attack." They continued forward, now aware of the predator shadowing their every move. David felt the weight of being watched, the hairs on his neck standing rigid. Somchai began to speak in a low, continuous stream, mixing Thai and English. "My father ranger too. Teach me tiger, not just animal. Tiger is forest spirit. Respect tiger. Sometimes tiger respect you." When they finally glimpsed the lights of the ranger station through the trees, David nearly wept with relief. The shadowy presence that had stalked them seemed to have vanished, though Somchai remained vigilant until they reached the small wooden structure elevated on stilts. Inside the sparse but tidy station, Somchai tended properly to David's wounds. As he worked, David noticed dozens of photographs pinned to the walls, all tigers, many featuring the scarred face of Mei Feu through different years. "You've been tracking her specifically?" Somchai nodded, applying antiseptic that stung worse than the original cuts. 23 years, know her since cub. Watch her have 12 cubs. Only 2 still alive now. David realized he was in the presence of someone extraordinary, a man who had dedicated his life to the very creatures David had only hoped to photograph briefly. As exhaustion finally overtook him, David had one last thought before sleep claimed him. He had come to document the tigers' decline, but instead had become part of their story. Dawn broke over the ranger station, sunlight filtering through gaps in the wooden shutters. David woke disoriented, his body stiff and aching. For a moment, he couldn't remember where he was until the events of the previous day came rushing back. He sat up with a jolt, wincing at the pain from his various cuts and bruises. Somchai was already awake, bent over a shortwave radio, speaking rapid Thai. When he noticed David, he ended the conversation and turned. "Bangkok say helicopter come tomorrow. Weather bad today. You stay here. Safe." David nodded, relief mixing with an unexpected disappointment. After years of chasing deadlines and perfect shots, the thought of returning to civilization felt strangely hollow. He glanced at the wall of tiger photographs. "Did you take all these?" Somchai smiled, the deep lines around his eyes crinkling. "Some, others from camera traps. I studied tigers 35 years now." As they shared a simple breakfast of rice and dried fish, Somchai revealed more of his story. He had started as a porter for Western researchers in the 1980s, eventually becoming a self-taught expert on the region's endangered tigers. Despite offers to work at universities or larger conservation organizations, He had chosen to remain in the forest, living a solitary life dedicated to protection rather than publication. Your colleague, the one who died, Mason, yes. I find his things. David nearly choked on his rice. You found Mason. The authorities said there was no body. Somchai's expression darkened. Not tiger kill him. Poachers. He photographed them with dead tiger. They shoot him. The revelation hit David like a physical blow. For 2 years, everyone had assumed Mason had fallen victim to the very predators he documented. The truth was both worse and all too human. Did you tell the police? Somchai looked away. Police come. Take report. Nothing happen. Poachers have connections. Pay money, go free. After breakfast, despite Somchai's protests about his injuries, David insisted on accompanying the ranger on his morning patrol. They kept to the established trails, Somchai pointing out fresh tiger tracks that made David's skin crawl. Yet something had shifted in him. The paralyzing fear had been replaced by a more complex emotion, something akin to reverence. May Feu territory, shrinking every year. Farmers burn forest edge. Poachers take prey. Soon nowhere for tigers. They paused at a small stream where Somchai checked a hidden camera trap. As he downloaded the images to an ancient laptop, David asked the question that had been forming since dawn. The magazine would pay for an exclusive interview with someone who has studied these tigers for decades. Your work deserves recognition. Somchai's eyes remained fixed on the computer screen. Not want recognition. Want tigers safe. The images from the camera trap appeared, mostly small deer and wild pigs. But then the unmistakable form of May Feu and her cubs drinking at the stream just hours earlier. Somchai pointed to a darker patch on her flank that David hadn't noticed during their encounter. Bullet wound, not healing well. Poachers tried to take her 2 weeks ago. David studied the magnificent animal, now seeing not just a predator but a survivor fighting against overwhelming odds. The scarred tiger suddenly represented something larger, the last stand of wilderness against human encroachment. Their patrol took them to the eastern boundary of the park, where the dense forest abruptly gave way to charred stumps and cleared land. Construction equipment sat idle over the weekend, ready to convert more forest into commercial plantation on Monday. Legal? David asked, already knowing the answer. Somchai's bitter laugh confirmed it. Paper say legal. Money make paper say anything in Thailand. As they turned back toward the station, a distant gunshot echoed through the forest. Somchai's expression hardened instantly. He unslung his rifle and checked the ammunition. Poachers. They know Rangers' short-staffed weekend. David's journalistic instincts kicked in. We should document this. I have my camera. Somchai hesitated, then nodded grimly. Very dangerous. These men kill Mason. Kill you too if see you. I know. But this is the real story I came for. As they moved stealthily toward the source of the gunshot, David felt a strange calm settle over him. After facing the tigers, human predators seemed less terrifying somehow. They were nearing a small clearing when Somchai suddenly pushed David down into the undergrowth. Through the leaves, David saw what had alarmed the ranger, 3 armed men standing over the body of a young tiger, not one of May Feu's cubs, but another juvenile male. David's camera came up instinctively, the telephoto lens capturing the poachers' faces, their vehicle's license plate, the bloody scene. Each click of the shutter felt like an act of justice for Mason. Then, from the forest behind, the poachers came a sound that made everyone freeze, the unmistakable growl of an enraged tiger. May Feu exploded from the underbrush like a force of nature, her massive body launching directly at the poacher who had been field dressing the dead juvenile tiger. The man had no time to raise his rifle before 400 pounds of muscle and fury slammed into him. His screams cut through the forest as Mei Few's jaws closed around his throat. The other poachers fired wildly, one bullet splintering bark inches from David's head. Somchai pulled him deeper into the foliage as chaos erupted in the clearing. Through gaps in the leaves, David continued shooting photographs, his finger pressing the shutter release mechanically, documenting the violent collision of human and animal worlds. One poacher managed to hit Mei Few, the impact spinning her away from her first victim. Blood darkened her orange coat, but the wound only seemed to intensify her rage. She turned toward the shooter with terrible focus. The man emptied his magazine in panic, each shot missing as Mei Few charged. His screams joined his companions as the tiger brought him down. The third poacher fled toward their truck, abandoning his companions. David's lens tracked him, capturing his terror-stricken face as he fumbled with the door handle. Before he could escape, Mei Few's cubs emerged from a different direction, cutting off his retreat. Trapped between adult tiger and adolescence, the man fired his last bullets at the cubs. One cub fell, wounded but alive. What happened next branded itself permanently in David's memory. The mother tiger, seeing her offspring injured, moved with impossible speed. The final poacher died, still screaming, his rifle useless at close range. The forest fell silent, except for the wounded cub's whimpers and the heavy breathing of the adult tiger. Mei Few stood among the carnage she had created, her sides heaving, blood, both hers and the poacher's, matting her fur. Then her amber eyes found David and Somchai in their hiding place. "Don't move," Somchai whispered, "not even to breathe." For 30 seconds that stretched like hours, the tiger stared directly at them. David felt stripped bare beneath that gaze, judged by something ancient and knowing. His camera hung forgotten around his neck. This moment would never be captured on film. This was between them alone. Then, as if reaching a decision, Mei Few turned away. She gently nudged her wounded cub, guiding it to its feet, and together with the uninjured one, they disappeared into the forest. Only when Somchai finally moved did David realize he'd been holding his breath. The ranger approached the clearing cautiously, rifle ready, but the tigers were truly gone. 3 human bodies remained, justice delivered by tooth and claw. "We must call authorities," David said, his voice sounding strange to his own ears. Somchai surveyed the scene, his expression unreadable. "You have photos?" David nodded. "Everything. Their faces, the dead tiger, the license plate. Everything. Good. Now delete all photos of men dead." "What?" "But that's evidence," Somchai cut him off. "If show tiger kill men, government will hunt all tigers, say too dangerous, must remove. You understand? Keep photos of men alive, with gun, with dead tiger. Not photos of tiger revenge." David understood. The story wasn't about poachers meeting justice. It was about exposing the illegal wildlife trade that was exterminating the last tigers. He deleted the most graphic images, preserving only what would serve the larger truth. That evening, as they waited for the authorities, David transmitted the edited photos to his editor in New York using Somchai's satellite connection. The message he included was brief. "I have the real story. It's not what we thought." The response came an hour later. Front cover confirmed. "Come home safe." The next morning, as the Thai police investigated the tragic hunting accident that had claimed 3 lives, the wildlife authorities arrived to tend to the juvenile tiger killed by the poachers. David gave his statement, careful to mention only that he and Somchai had documented the poaching, but had hidden during the attack. The photos showed everything necessary, the crime, not the retribution. The helicopter finally arrived that afternoon. As David prepared to leave, Somchai handed him a small wooden carving of a tiger. May few let you live twice. Very rare honor. David accepted the gift, its weight somehow significant beyond the mere wood. I'll come back. This story isn't finished. Somchai's weathered face broke into a rare smile. Forest will remember you. Tigers, too. As the helicopter lifted above the canopy, David looked down at the vast green expanse of May Wong. Somewhere below, May Fiu was tending her wounded cub, continuing her desperate fight for survival. His assignment had been to document the decline of a species, but he was returning with something more powerful, a story of resilience, of nature's terrible justice, of a balance not yet completely broken. 6 months later, David's photo essay, The Last Tigers, won the World Press Photo Award. The accompanying investigation led to the arrest of 2 major wildlife trafficking kingpins and new protection measures for May Wong National Park. Somchai was offered a position heading a new ranger unit with increased funding, which he accepted on the condition that he could remain in his simple station in the forest. David never photographed May Fiu again, though Somchai's camera traps occasionally captured her, the bullet wounds healed, her cubs growing stronger. Some stories, David had learned, were not meant to be captured, only witnessed. His encounter had changed him forever. No deadline seemed urgent, no city comfortable, no story complete. The forest had claimed part of him, just as surely as it had claimed those who threatened its last tigers.